May 10, 1969. A Shau Valley Republic of Vietnam. Warm rain needles the leaves. Leeches make a black necklace around the ankles of men who haven't stopped moving since dawn. 2nd Lieutenant Tom Garvey, 3rd Battalion, 187th Infantry, 101st Airborne Division, leans into the slope with 30 pounds of gear biting his shoulders. His ANPRC-25 handset hisses. Rakkasan 3 copy. We're at the finger. Thick canopy. No eyes. A pause. Artillery thumps in the distance, a slow heartbeat. He thumbs the safety of his M16A1 and looks up through the green tunnel. The hill above them, Hill 937, unnamed on many maps, seems to lean down and listen. The battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Weldon Bull Honeycutt, has ordered a coordinated push. The A Shau is a graveyard of downed aircraft, and busted plans a corridor for North Vietnamese regulars coming off the Ho Chi Minh Trail from Laos. Intelligence says the PEVN 29th Regiment is somewhere on this ridge system. The Rakkasans are going to pry them out hill by hill, finger by finger, until there is no place left to cling. Move! A squad slides past the wreckage of a rusting UH-1 Huey that died here months ago, vines knitting its doors shut. Point man taps his helmet wire ahead. A claymore mine set to command detonate. The platoon freezes while the engineer crawls forward, fingers feeling the line like a blind man reading bad news. A distant DSHK heavy machine gun barks once too far to be for them. Then silence. Garvey exhales through his nose copper in his mouth from a bitten lip. At Bureau 930, a company steps off. The jungle swallows them. The first contact comes soft 3 rounds that crack like breaking branches. Then all at once the world detonates, B-40 rockets, AK bursts, and the ferocious sucking sound of bullets stripping air from inches above a man's scalp. The slope multiplies everything sound. Fear the weight of a wet rucksack. Garvey's radio man, PFC Morales, tumbles behind a root antenna whipping. Red leg, this is Apache 26 fire mission grid. His voice cuts as an RPG blooms orange in the treetops and rains twigs, leaves, and dirt. The forward air controller arcs overhead in an O2 Skymaster. His voice radio calm, I can mark smoke out. Purple furls above the canopy. A pair of F-4 Phantoms drags contrails low and mean rolling in like jurors delivering a verdict. The napalm canisters flutter free, tumbling end over end, then open in burning petals. Heat comes through the leaves like a door to another climate being kicked open. The ground inhales. Men press their faces into dirt that feels alive. Up, up. The assault recoils, then surges again. M60 teams chew belts in 2-second screams, changing barrels with the practiced flinch of hands used to heat. The first body Garvey steps over is a PAVN in faded green web gear, neatly arranged, eyes open as if he is still waiting on an order. The second is a kid from Ohio whose name was written in laundry marker on the flap of his first aid pouch. Medics work by touch chest, rise pulse, a morphine syringe pressed between teeth. Dust off, the medevac Huey drops through cloud and small arms fire skids, barely kissing a hacked-open LZ. The crew chief gestures wildly, in. By early afternoon, they've gained a few hundred meters of vertical, which feels like another planet. The hill refuses. Trenches appear in apparitions, curving firing pits woven into the contour spider holes with their lids tamped down by careful boots. Every yard has been thought about by someone with a shovel and time and a cold eye for where a man will crawl when he hears a bullet. They've been here a while, Sergeant Dorsey mutters, half to Garvey, half to the hill. Dorsey taps a captured Chi-Com grenade, then pockets it like a cursed souvenir. The rain returns heavier. Honeycutt's commands roll down the net pressure. Keep pressure. The battalion fans B and C companies, feeling for flanks along razorback ridges with names the maps don't bother with. To the south elements of 1506th Infantry probe other approaches. The hill has many faces. Every one of them shows teeth. The PAVN 29th is not running. They are inviting the Americans to climb into geometry fields of fire overlapping like scissor blades. At 1600, artillery walks the ridgeline, 105s and Wumpty 5s, stitching explosions along the crest. The jungle smokes. The men push again. They always push when the earth is still ringing, because that's when the other guy is blinking and asking his dead where to stand. A log bunker up top coughs flame. Dorsey points. An M72 Law spits its backblast, the rocket punching into the timbered slot, the bunker sagging like a mouth losing a tooth. For a breath, the firing slackens. Dusk comes fast and hard in the Shau. Someone says they're 30 meters from the top. Someone else says 20. Then a machine gun rakes left to right, and the slope erupts. Down, down. Garvey's cheek hits root. His helmet knocks bark, his teeth grind grit. The line flexes. The air is all tracer green, descending like rain red, clawing up as if the valley is trying to pull the stars back down. They slide back in 2s and 3s to hasty positions, raking the trees with fire to peel away pursuit. Radios spit coordinates and questions nobody can answer. A medic crawls past with both knees bleeding and says, "They're dug like moles." Night falls. Men dig with hands because entrenching tools clack too loud. The hill breathes above them, patient. In the black, Garvey hears Dorsey count softly, not numbers, but names. The rain seems to hide each one. May 11th, 1969. Western approaches to Hill 937. Dawn is a rumor the jungle isn't ready to believe. The platoon reassembles by voice and touch wet uniforms, cold as river stones. Honeycutt's order rides the net like a rivet gun. "We're going back up." A chorus of acknowledgments, some clipped, some tired, answers him. The men eat from pockets, a crumbled cracker, a smear of peanut butter on a greasy finger. Someone passes a canteen. The water tastes like iodine and tin, but also like courage. The forward elements step into knee-high ferns and begin the ritual move, freeze, listen. PFC Morales keeps the antenna low. The jungle punishes anything that sticks its head up. Sergeant Dorsey marks trees with the lightest touch of a machete so the next squad can read their passage. The slope angles cruelly 60-70 degrees in how it feels to thighs and lungs. When they pause, you can hear leech bellies pluck off skin. Men hiss, pry them free, smear the blood like war paint by accident. At 1000, the first bunker system shows itself the way a trapdoor shows itself, by swallowing a man. Point trips a camouflaged lid and slams shoulder deep into a spider hole face to face with a PAVN whose cheek is puffed with the wet leaves he'd been quietly chewing. The PAVN's eyes flare surprise, then hate, then purpose. 2 shots in a space where air has nowhere to go. 1 AK, 1 M16, and both men fall out backwards into the world again. The squad erupts with gunfire. Grenadiers pump M79 rounds high to drop on the trench line that suddenly is everywhere. Radio traffic turns to a stack of requests. Smoke on this grid, gunships on the west finger, dust-off standing by. The AH-1 Cobra slides between ridges, skinny and venomous rockets laddering up the slope into timbered mouths. The jungle takes the punishment with a grunt and spits back. A 12.7mm opens, the rounds snap, slamming past like an iron bee. The Cobra wobbles, corrects, presses on. They gain meters the way misers gain coins, one at a time, angry at every loss. In the churn of motion, a pattern emerges and Garvey feels it. Before he knows the words, the hill is arranged to hold them. Interlocking fire-covered approaches that aren't dead ground, that isn't dead. Trenches switch back just below the crest, so you can be 20 meters from victory and not know you're at the bottom of another problem. At noon, the rain returns harder, maybe personal now. The men stink of sweat and deet of mud that has been stepped in by armies for centuries. Honeycutt drives the battalion like a hammer. To the south, 1 506th claws at another spur. To the east, ARVN units test flanks. Air and artillery bark and growl without pause. In the brief gaps, you hear small sounds, a spoon dinging inside a helmet. The soft murmur of a medic, soothing a man who is trying to hunch his way out of a sucking chest wound. Near 1500, a bunker complex refuses to die. The first grenade rolls in and comes back out with the laziness of a cat pushing a toy. The second grenade stays pops, and the bunker coughs splinters. Dorsey gestures law. The rocket snakes into timber. Smoke boils. A young PFC from Bakersfield, he told everyone about the orange groves like they were a promise, pitches forward with a neat hole above his right eye. The platoon's world telescopes to a slice of dirt and 2 feet of air. They take the ground by inches and find in the bunker a field phone wire vanishing underground and a machine gun that has been fed so often its barrel is a dull plum. As dusk thickens, Honeycutt orders a pullback to consolidate. He is relentless because the hill is relentless, and neither intends to blink first. Maintain contact, the net says, code for do not let them vanish. The Rakkasans back down a few contours under a roof of outgoing 105mm shells. The enemy fires harassing bursts, a voice you can recognize now, cool, professional, unhurried. The PAVN 29th is not a rumor. It is an opponent with doctrine, discipline, and a memory for mistakes. Night brings the second realization, the one that hardens faces even in the dark. This will not be quick. Men inventory bandoliers by touch the quiet arithmetic of how much more they can do tomorrow. They sharpen entrenching tools on rocks to cut new shelf foxholes in soil that looks like coffee grounds. A claymore is set and wired, the clacker tucked under a palm. Garvey writes names in a pocket notebook with a greasy pencil because he needs to remember them in one piece. Somewhere above, a PAVN soldier lights a cigarette under a poncho. For 1 second, the hill has a star of its own. Dozen rifles rise and do not fire. The star goes out. The rain deepens. A rat, or something like a rat, walks across Garvey's boot and into the night as if it knows the map better than any man. May 13, 1969. The ridge complex west of Dong-Ap-Bia Hill, 9:37. By the 4th day, the hill has a smell sap turned metallic by shrapnel mud, saturated with CLP oil. Human breath trapped under ponchos, the sweet chemical reek of CS gas that lingers in hollows. The battalion's assaults are now rhythm and argument. C Company lunges on a narrow spur, while A shapes fires B swings to pry at the left. Artillery brackets like parentheses around each push shot. Splash, and the platoons in the middle of the sentence choose their next words carefully. Dorsey becomes a metronome. 3 seconds. Up. Move. Men rise into machine gun time, take 4 steps, and drop to belly time. Boots chew the slope raw. Jungle floor becomes pulp that grips ankles. The enemy's trenches appear and vanish, the PAVN moving through communications tunnels with a confidence that is almost smug. You imagine an officer with a waxed pencil tracing arcs on a mud wall telling a runner, "Wait until they're here, not there. Here." At 1100 on the 14th, a pair of CH-47 Chinooks tries to sling load ammo to a ridge notch the maps call an LZ. The wind shifts. Smoke lies down and the approach turns into a gauntlet. A DSHK opens, then another. Tracers climb the sky like angry vines. One ship jettisons its load crates, tearing through trees. The other claws air, limps away. Down on the slope, men look up and taste the helplessness that comes when even the machine gods have to duck. The medics work in an economy of motion that would be poetry if it weren't soaked through. Doc Willis cuts a sleeve with a snip, snip, snip that keeps rhythm with his breath. "You're okay. Stay with me." He says it whether it's true or not, because sometimes truth is an indulgence. A dust-off pilot drops through rain so thick it's like landing in a waterfall, skids kissing mud rotors, combing the canopy for trouble. An RPG arcs lazy as a question, then answers itself against the air with a poof of smoke. The pilot lifts away, with 3 inside 1 under a poncho and a 4th crewman who will replay the sound of that poof for the rest of his life. By the 5th day, the Rakkasans have learned the hill's grammar. You do not step into quiet places. You probe them. You do not trust a log where a log shouldn't be. You circle, kick, and wait. Law rockets live in the small of a man's back like extra vertebrae. The call for beehive flechette rounds from 105s comes when a trench is close enough that you can smell damp canvas and the edge of someone's ration rice. The flechette's scythe leaves into confetti and pin flat anything that thought it was safe behind bark. The enemy is learning too. Fire that was once generous becomes surgical. An RPD waits for men to commit to a crossing before it speaks. A sniper sends a round into the lip of a foxhole so that earth showers the face beneath like a second burial. At night, a loudspeaker sends Chew Hoi whispers in careful Vietnamese promises of food and a letter home. The men listen with expressions as hard as the ground. A few answer back with the first language every soldier learns: silence. On the 15th, a push along the east shoulder makes it for a moment to a place where the treetops thin and the world opens. You can see impossibly sunlight above a blasted crown. There it is, the crest mere meters away. Then a bunker that had been the color of the hill blinks and becomes a thing with intention. The machine gun speaks, and a wall of bullets writes its denial in green tracer. 2 men go down in 1 syllable's worth of time. The squad falls away, leaving behind a smoke grenade that drools purple to mark what could have been. "We're close," Honeycutt says on the net that night, his voice a sandpaper promise. To the south. 1506th reports similar near touches. Airstrikes notch the hill. B-52 arc light strikes walk the valley beyond distant thunder that turns landscape into topography class. The ground under the men's elbows trembles with power they cannot see. It is both comfort and mockery. All that weight and still this. On the 16th, rain dials back to a steady sheet. Morales wraps the radio in a poncho and keeps the handset dry inside his shirt, the antenna ticking leaves like a blind man's cane. Garvey's voice is hoarse. He's learned to talk without breathing hard in between, so whoever hears him believes the lie that he has breath to spare. He marks another name in the notebook. The page is soft. The pencil is a nub. At dusk, a PAVN soldier breaks from a trench and sprints low mouth open. He's throwing something. 6 rifles fire, and he spins and falls, the grenade rolling out from under him like a beetle. It does not explode. Dorsey picks it up, cocks an eyebrow. Dud. He says it with no triumph. Tomorrow another won't be. Night. The platoon sets claymores and interlocks sectors of fire with words spoken into each other's ears. Trip flares whisper and occasionally pop with a startled hiss when a branch decides it has had enough rain. Someone hums a tune and stops when he realizes he is humming. The hill rearranges itself in the dark, as surely as if men were moving logs. Maybe they are. Tomorrow will be day 7. The count is becoming a superstition. May 20th, 1969. Hill 937. Later known by a name no map ever used, Hamburger Hill. By sunrise, the plan is both simple and impossible: converge, overwhelm, do not stop. A B and C. Companies will step into the mouth together while supporting fires 105s, 155s, Cobras. Phantoms sand the teeth down. To the south, 1506th claws for the ridge to cut escape. The men are at that place soldiers sometimes reach where the mind has shrunk to tasks and the heart is a private room. Dorsey reloads his M16 magazines with the calm of a mechanic. Morales ties a spare handset to his harness. Garvey checks each man's eyes, not for fear, which is universal, but for the decision that lives next to it. Artillery lifts like a blanket being yanked off a bed. Go. The company rises, and the world narrows to a slope and a breath that won't get big enough. Grenades arc in a braid. Law rockets crack. The first bunker sags and they flow through, no victory pose, just motion, because the second bunker is already taking its breath to answer. An RPG streak passes a comet at chest height and chews a hole in a tree big enough to sit in. On the left, a machine gun that has stuttered for days finally stumbles. A Cobra dips rockets unspooling with an angry sewing machine sound into the logwork. The bunker collapses on itself like a shrug. The squad surges boots, finding a path that wasn't there yesterday, because yesterday they were too far. A PAVN soldier bursts from a tunnel with a pistol and a face like a cliff. He fires twice and then folds into the earth he has lived inside. Garvey crashes the last shelf of slope behind Dorsey. It is all noise, and then abruptly, space, the crown, is a bald scar where jungle used to be. For a second, the sky is not above the trees, but above them. Men spill over the lip and fan without instruction, because instruction is what this hill gave them, in return for the names in the notebook. A final trench kinks left. The team sweeps it with M79, he fragments clattering in the timber like rain reinvented in metal. Ceasefire, ceasefire. The words ring small after days of thunder. A flare streaks up and hangs its light thin, but enough to make the mud look like it has a varnish. On the crest, a tangle of logs marks the command bunker. Inside is a map board damp with breath and weather grease pencil arcs, still visible. A canteen cup, spent casings kicked into corners by feet that had other worries. There is no triumphant tableau. There is only the sense of weight shifting, as if the hill has exhaled and admitted for this moment that it is not a person. Men sit because standing has become a theory. Medics move among them, counting the living by touch. Radios crackle with the arithmetic of consolidation. A small American flag appears from somebody's ruck, not a ceremony, just a hand, a stick, a patch of cloth. It flutters once damply, then hangs. The wind in the Shau does not celebrate. By afternoon, the hill has a new sound: helicopters. Dust-off ships cycle in with a rhythm so steady you want to clap on the beat. CH-47s bring water and ammo sling more than they drop, learning air again after days of being told by the ground who was in charge. The men police brass with the muscle memory of training cycles thousands of miles away. A journalist who has climbed with another company asks a question and then, seeing the faces, chooses to write it down instead of say it. Down the slope, tunnels spit out men who melt into the jungle. The Pavan 29th does not surrender its existence, only this crest. They fire harassing bursts, more spite than strategy. And the Americans lie low because they have learned to respect the hill's afterthoughts. Honeycutt walks the perimeter with a stony set to his jaw that reads like grief's older brother. He tells a company commander, "Good work," and both men understand what those two words have to carry. The word hamburger shows up first as a bitter joke in the mouth of a soldier whose hands won't stop shaking. It is not a headline yet. It is men trying to make a sound that is easier to carry than the other sounds this place has taught them. They laugh once cracked and don't try again. May 21st to June 1st, 1969. Within days, Higher Headquarters looks at maps and lines of supply at ridges that still need watching and valleys that will never be tamed by sitting on their teeth, and makes a decision named maneuver in the language of staff. The order goes out to withdraw from Hill 937 after destroying what can be destroyed. Engineers set C4 charges in bunkers that took men to buy. The hill jumps and settles as if shrugging off a skin. Word filters home, then explodes. Why take it to leave it? And the name the soldiers minted becomes a national argument. Parents in kitchens in Ohio and Texas ask questions into TV light. In the platoon, the question takes another form. Dorsey closes Garvey's notebook and hands it back. "Don't lose that," he says, meaning don't forget. Morales winds the radio antenna like a whip and tucks it away, meaning we still have work. They file off the crown in columns of two mud-streaked and a little thinner in the face. At a switchback, Garvey turns once and looks up. The crest is already knitting itself shut with smoke and rain and the fast green will of the jungle. He thinks of the orange groves the Bakersfield Kid promised them, of a cigarette star under a poncho of a machine gun that finally ran out of luck. He thinks of the men who are walking and the ones who are not, and realizes that, in a way, he cannot articulate yet. The hill is not left. It is carried. At the bottom, a Huey flares, skids slapping mud. The crew chief leans out with a gloved hand. "Let's go, Rakasans." Someone laughs, surprised that the sound still works. The ship lifts banking over the valley that keeps its own counsel. Hill 937 sits where it has always sat, exactly itself, saying nothing. Years later, travelers will stand in thick second growth and try to pick out a contour, a line, a scar, something that proves what happened. The jungle will offer birdsong and a breeze and an argument that the earth always wins. Somewhere a man will wake from a dream of climbing and feel his calves clench, his lungs burn, and a name rise unbidden in the dark. He will say it once to an empty room, Hamburger Hill, and the room will understand.